company this Ramadan.
Well, the time is just gone 6 minutes past 4 p.m. as we kick off this morning with the Iftar Drive show. And we are now going across to be joined by Hassen Lorgat, who is a social justice activist and researcher. We are taking a look at the month of Ramadan, looking at the social justice aspect in the month of Ramadan and how closely linked it is to this glorious month. And we're going across now to say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to you, Brother Hassan. Ramadan Kareem to you, and Jazakallah for your time.
Walaikum salam, and thank you for having me.
Yes, Ramadan, a glorious month in more ways than one. Spiritually, we know about the month of the Quran, but also looking at the same time the whole concept of social justice. And when we talk about the month of the Quran, and the Quran speaks volumes about social justice, about implementing social justice, about encouraging social justice. And let's just talk and let's look at this correlation or this link between social justice to this month of Ramadan.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, I work with mining affected communities and poor people affected adversely by mining. So I mean, social justice has a number of elements. One is about your right to participate, the diversity of the people who participate in this democracy. We have access to and rights to resources, right? And whether these are water, electricity, and to be in solidarity with others. So there are various elements, and then there's equity, whether there's an equality of treatment that you have. Now, some of these elements in the more secular world is very, very difficult to implement. And you know that we've all been even having water shedding now. But we don't spend enough time to look at what about the people without any water. One of the things why I was excited to engage when I received the call, a few weeks ago on radio, various radio stations, people were actually talking about how in some homes, families are seeking to claim back monies from a cousin who lived with them for what they've been, how they've ate. Now that they qualified, can they pay back the various things that people invested in them? And I just thought, what a society are we living in? Such levels of extreme poverty and inequality. Half the people are living in poverty. And then you find that instead of embracing the one that you've helped, you are concerned about getting a payback for it, right? And I thought Ramadan is the good month, is the month where Muslims are at the best behavior. Of course, Muslims, like any other human being, also have not a good behavior. But during Ramadan, people bring out the best of themselves, right? And I remember as a child how people in Cape and various places would walk around with the trays around iftar to share with neighbors and others, not only Muslim, to break fast and enjoying in this lovely spirit of giving. And I think some people call it the Staramakasi culture. It's that kind of culture that we need to bottle up outside Ramadan. The joint iftars, the praying together, the fasting together, both as an act of cleansing for oneself, but also in solidarity with those who have to live this life continuously without food. And clearly, I'm not trying to minimize this. There is a difference between starving and fasting. Fasting is a voluntary act that we take on, but we must be aware that there are people who go to bed without food, and that is starvation. So the month of Ramadan then, and the religion of Islam is one that is synonymous with justice, right? But it's not only Muslims that espouse the cause of justice. Martin Luther King famously said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. And when we talk about Palestine, We talk about what China is doing now, right? All these come together because we are human. We can feel for those who are suffering, and they don't have to look like us because that's our common humanity. Those who abuse others undermine themselves as well as the person that they are oppressing. So what I think what we need to think more critically about, some people think during Ramadan, if we just put a few cents in and I give charity, that is an act of solidarity. Yes, the giving of alms in other religions, zakat and all that, are very, very important to build a just society. But I think that the act of solidarity goes a little bit further in that you give of yourself, not just a few coins when some beggar passes by and say, that's for you and go away. We try to ask, as the liberation theologist Leonardo Boff said, when I gave charity, they said, like, I'm a great guy. When I asked, why are people living in such poverty? They called me a communist. So we need to ask very deep questions. Why is it that in the society of plenty, right, people are going hungry? We need to have that discussion as part of the dispensation towards social justice. We need to say we've got all the mines, we've got everything else, but why is it that people go hungry, right? And that our solidarity as Muslims cannot be just to Muslims, because Muslims are not the majority in the society. The poor people are there. They are brothers and sisters. They are human beings in need of our solidarity. And we need to open up the discussion to embrace, because the true practice of Islam is not just in talking, but in showing and sharing that gift of what we have.
Exactly. And also, I think, Brother Hassan, when one looks at Ramadan, and many of us associate Ramadan with fasting, with spending the day without food, without water, and staying hungry. And when we link the month of Ramadan and hunger, it is relevant because we've got to a stage in this country and right across the entire world, even on the African continent, where millions of people are actually going hungry. And South Africa is such a food insecure country at this point in time. So what we are experiencing during the day, during our fast, during the month of Ramadan, is like you correctly say, people are experiencing out of Ramadan each and every day of their lives.
And the water. Let's talk about thirst. We're a semi-arid country. We are water scarce. There are leakages, which is the cause of the authorities, but we do not have to wait for the authorities to put a water tanker on or to recycle water for the flushing of the bathroom. Uh, there are small things like that which agency is so incredible. And I can understand why the Chinese authorities are so afraid of the practice of the faith. It doesn't have to be a ruling. People know what they have to do because they read it and they discuss with other Muslims and people of faith about what is just and what is not just. So that is the fear. So you have to take away the books. You've got to do that, And it's happened also to Jewish people when there were pogroms against them, that their books were taken away. But this is why I think the question of Palestine becomes so important to us. We're talking about a people who have suffered, and their rulers have usurped that history of suffering to oppress Palestinians. But our problem is we are not just for Palestinians. Palestinians are so dehumanized, but they are a mirror image of the suffering of other poor people. So we are in solidarity with Palestine and other oppressed. We don't just run to Palestine and ignore what happens at home. You cannot be in solidarity with Palestine, right, as a social justice activist, and come home and treat with disrespect your loved ones, or beat your child, or do something, or treat the one person who works with you with indignity. It just does not work, because if you do that, you undermine yourself.
Exactly. And I think, now that it's interesting that you mentioned Palestine, and also when one looks at the month of Ramadan, we need to reflect here, year in, year out. When one looks at Ramadan as a benchmark in terms of what had happened last Ramadan compared to what's taking place this Ramadan, very little has changed, Hassan. In fact, the situation is actually getting worse, and it's not only about Palestine. We're talking about right across the world, and there are new challenges that are emerging every day from a social justice perspective.
Yeah, I mean, who would have thought many years ago we had the divine rights of kings, where people believe that the kings and would rule forever, and they don't survive anymore. So it happens in such a way sometimes that we struggle and seem to be knocking a brick wall, and then people in various ways, their meditations, their prayers, their continuous struggle, right, will bring about new dimensions for change. Now look what's happened in occupied Palestine. People are protesting there to defend Israeli democracy in very big inverted commas. But this is done at the expense of Palestinians. Those who are protesting do not for a minute think how I treated the other, the Palestinian, the indigenous person is anti-democratic. I should be protesting for them. Someone said if this was a democracy protest, the Palestinians would have been in the front line. But they know it is a protest to secure what little, like we had in apartheid, South Africa, whites-only democracy, a Jewish-only democracy. So that is why the principle of social justice is the indivisibility of rights, right? You have to respect another person, even if they're from another faith. You cannot just be good to people of your faith. You have to be good to your neighbor and show them what it means to be a Muslim in practice. But we've had sometimes a myopia where people have actually started thinking that only you show yourself to be good by doing good to only those that you know. No, doing good. I used to say this to my son and other kids that were in my life, that doing good means picking up the dog crap when no one's looking, not doing it when the cameras are there or social media to show I'm a good citizen. You've got to do these things when no one is looking, when the reward does not appear to be observable, right? And you cannot count your sawads before they hatch. You've got to do that, and you're not the judge of your own destiny. People are too judgmental of others, of who does this, who doesn't do that. You do good for yourself and do good to others, and you will be judged later for what you've done. It
Yes.
doesn't mean be judgmental on other people, but human right is indivisible. Do unto others as you would like them to do unto you.
Well, Hassan, we're going to put you on hold. We're going to go for a quick ad break. We'll be back.
This is Salam Media, keeping you connected.
Do you want to make a real impact this Ramadan? Donate your zakah to Ashraful Aid. Your zakah can help feed an orphan, support a widow, build a home for a refugee family, sponsor a HIF student, and much more. With Ashraful Aid, you can make a real difference. Visit our website at www.ashrafulaid.org to make a donation. Make your Ramadan meaningful with Ashraful Aid.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042-203-1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
The Prophet ﷺ has said, none of you will have faith that he wishes for his brother what he likes for himself. For thousands of our ummah, wishes are simple needs that we can fulfill. Dates, bread and clean water for suhoor and iftar. Join Africa Muslims Agency's Wish campaign this Ramadan to feed the fasting for 100 rands per day, provide a grocery hamper for 1,500 rands per month, and feed a village or camp for 16,000 rands per day. Fulfill the wishes of families in need across the world this Ramadan with AMA. Call AMA now on 011 834 8685 or donate at africamuslimsagency.co.za. Africa Muslims Agency, empowering, educating, inspiring.
For a long time, we've lived in a centralized world where institutions held the all-important data and confirmed all transactions. Those times are over. Welcome to Libertas Group, a blockchain development company boasting an ecosystem that continually redefines the way we do business. Our blockchain is decentralized, making it immune to hacking or alteration, putting the power back in your hands with no middleman so you can focus on the growth of your business. Libertas, the simplest investment choice you'll make.
At Sentio, our Invest for Good philosophy is based on a genuine desire to use our investment skills for the benefit of broader society by investing responsibly, giving charitably, and developing talent that will transform the investment industry. Visit www.sentio-capital.com for more information about our Sharia investment products and start saving with us today. Sentio Capital. Invest for good. Sentio Capital Management is an authorized financial services provider.
From samosas and half moons to cook sisters and roti, everything between iftar and sehri makes sunfoil cooking oil an essential part of your Ramadan. Approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a healthy diet, this blessed month, give your family the best with sunfoil, because tradition just tastes better.
You are listening to Salam Media live from our headquarters in South Africa. This is Salam Media, keeping you company.
Well, the time is just gone 24 minutes past 4 p.m. on the Iftar Drive with myself, Inayat Wadi, and we will be with you from now right until the time of Iftar in Johannesburg, and taking a look at the month of Ramadan, looking at the link between the month of Ramadan and the concept of social justice. And we need to remind ourselves that Ramadan is not only a month in which we rededicate ourselves to worship with renewed vigor, which is important, but it is also a month where we need to remember those who are marginalized for the variety of reasons, whether it's poverty, displacement, war, social, political oppression, and all of this is still taking place during this sacred month of Ramadan. And this is the reason why we are talking with my guest. We are talking with Hassen Lorgat, who is a social justice activist. Hassen, assalamu alaikum once again. And as we continue, I think one of the key issues here also is utilizing this month of Ramadan to basically make sure that it becomes an obligation on our part, so that we can become a lot more compassionate, and at the same time to recommit ourselves during this month of Ramadan to the upliftment of our fellow human beings, and to remember our social obligations, and obviously with social justice in mind.
Yeah, Brother Knight, I have to come back to you when you said to us, things have gone worse since the last time we met. But there's a silver lining that as these protests happen for a Jewish-only democracy, they're asking themselves questions, because a large percentage of the oppressed in occupied Palestine are not there. Some people are beginning to ask themselves, but really, what is democracy, right? What is democracy if it is not for everyone? Where are the Palestinians, or what they say, Arab Israelis, right? And why is it that you only see them at checkpoints, or as laborers, or people to be beaten up or jailed? So there are questions beginning to emerge, and we need to keep that open, because it is only the most oppressed that can liberate the oppressor. Palestinians are there, and they're the key to liberate the Jewish oppressor in Israel, the Zionist oppressor. Because there are many, many good Jewish people who are on the side of Palestinians in this country and elsewhere. So this is the key message that they have to learn, that only through the liberation of the most oppressed will they become free. So that is the one issue about human rights being indivisible. But when there's going to be a truth commission, when there's going to be a hearing after this oppression, there will have to be redress. Have to be restorative justice measures to try and see how we fully humanize those who've oppressed us. We are struggling in this country, and we can see it. Some people want to continue to eat more than others, right? And symbolically, eat means earn more, get jobs, give others menial jobs, undignified jobs, while you take the top jobs. This is the time, as you say, Ramadan is a time to recalibrate our humanity. Who are we, right? What are we supposed to be? If we can do it in a month, why can't we do it every other day? Now, you don't have to be a lover of Mahatma Gandhi, but in his symbolism, when he started to clean and wash toilets, when he took what he called wrongly Harijan Bandhu, or the untouchables, right? Which they call themselves the Dalits, right? When he took that task, right, he he was showing that people do not have to be classed into certain categories of work, and that he, the so-called saint, can do that work. And it's that kind of practice that we need to think about. There is not certain types of work for Africans, certain types of work for intellectual Indians, and certain type of works for whites. This is a time for us to test that whoever serves humanity must do so, in a way that liberates all of us, right? And that brings the issue of personal integrity. Personal integrity. Far too many of our leaders are looting. They use public office as a basis to loot, not to serve people. They don't know what Bishop Tutu spoke about Ubuntu. They don't talk about Ubuntu. The leaders exist for themselves. We are in this crisis because our leaders are thieves. They steal at the expense of the public. And this is the time to speak truth to power, but not to do it for a cheap electioneering purpose, but to do it for the integrity. It doesn't mean that all the people in our party are correct. There are people on the other side that may be correct. So personal integrity, organizational integrity, the integrity of the Ummah comes there. But we pick and choose what we want, right? We can say, I have a Senegalese friend, his name is Job. He says to me, every time he's working somewhere and he's eating a pie or something, some of our Muslim brethren, Muslim men, will say to them, the pie that you are eating, is it halal? Who gives this guy the role of being a halal certificator, right? He says that, then he tells me, but the guy doesn't look at how he treats the person who works for him. That is an unhalal treatment that is meeting out. So it's not just what you put in your mouth or in your stomach, but it's the conduct and personal integrity that you display that makes us fully human. You treat people the way you'd like to be treated.
Well, certainly, Brother Hassan, Jazakallah khairan so much for that. And I'm sure you and I can engage a lot more on this topic. It's a huge topic. It's a vast topic. There's just so much ground to cover. But unfortunately, time is of the essence. But as always, we appreciate you taking time out and being part of these highly informative discussions on Salam Media with us. We wish you all the best, inshallah. Enjoy the rest of the month of Ramadan. Allah grant you safety. Allah grant you strength and the health to continue with all the wonderful work you're doing, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
The same to you, Mufti.
Mufti, wow. Okay. Well, there's it. I've got another title, Mufti, this Ramadan from Brother Hassen Lorgat. And with that, the time is just gone 4:30. We're going to go for a break. It is going to be the Athar Adhan. And we will come back after the Athar Adhan. There's still a lot more to unpack from now right until the time of Iftar here in Johannesburg.
As you said, as it now is the Ramadan month, Holy Ramadan, and 1.5 billion Muslims around the world very peacefully have a Ramadan fasting, but unfortunately, around 25 million Uyghur Muslim in East Turkestan cannot fasting. They don't have religious freedom. It is not a new case. Actually, before 2014, current President Xi Jinping talks of power, there is a little bit religious freedom. At this, people can fasting. Not all, of course. Before also, for example, government employer cannot fasten, school children, teacher cannot fasten, but rest of some people they allowed to fasten. But 2014 in May, and the Chinese government launched a strike hard campaign against the violent terrorism, so-called, and then marks the first escalation of the discriminatory policy, and particularly mass arbitrary detention targeting Uyghur and other Turk Muslim in East Turkestan, name of countering terrorism. Purpose of this campaign was to fight for three evil. It is three evil force for the ethnic separatism, violent terrorism, religious extremism. Under this head, then and mass arrested starting 2016, Chinese government built concentration camp. Now is at the 3 million Uyghur Kazakh Muslim are suffering concentration camp. So now this time since 2016, and nearly all mosque was closed and not allowed to praying even, and the collected Quran, confiscation Quran, burning Quran, and Xi Jinping government, and also forced sterilization women. And there is a zero tolerance for the religious of belief, because Chinese government and Xi Jinping openly judged saying Islam is ideological disaster, ideological illness. It must be eradicated. This is the official slogan of the Chinese Communist Party as Xi Jinping. So on this framework, there is no possibility. But sometimes we have seen time to time Chinese government organize some propaganda tour, particularly Muslim country, and during the Ramadan time, then they organize some propaganda tour just to force it to people and bring the people to mosque and asking them to, you have to fast today.